Welcome to today's Explainer. We are navigating a hyper-connected digital landscape right now where our data is moving faster and frankly further than ever before. But with all that incredible connectivity comes a pretty stark reality. Securing our systems just isn't optional anymore. So let's dive right in. In this breakdown, we're going to bridge the gap between academic cybersecurity theory and the actual practical defenses you need to protect your business on a daily basis.
I want you to ask yourself honestly for a second. Is your business truly secure? It is a super common misconception that cybercriminals only go after massive, multinational corporations. The reality? Cyber attacks are an expensive, incredibly destructive reality for literally everyone, from college students to small business owners. A single data breach can completely paralyze your operations and cause untold reputational damage. We aren't just talking about a financial hit here, we're talking about the survival of the business.
Here is our roadmap for today. Number 1. Welcome to the cyber battlefield. 2. The core, which is the CIA triad. 3. 7 layers of cyber defense. 4. Navigating the threat landscape. 5. The NIST cybersecurity framework. And finally, 6. Practical defenses for your business.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1. Welcome to the cyber battlefield.
When we talk about cybersecurity, this definition really hits the nail on the head. Notice how it's absolutely not just about firewalls or antivirus software. It is a completely holistic combination of people, processes, and technologies all working together. It's about reducing threats, responding to incidents, and building resiliency. You can't just buy a fancy piece of software and call it a day. It requires building a culture of continuous practice.
Moving right along to Section 2, the core, also known as CIA triad.
Before you can even think about building a defense, you have to know exactly what you're defending, right? That is your mission-critical asset. It's the holy grail of your organization. It could be your customer database, your financial records, or maybe the proprietary software running your daily operations. Basically, if you lose control of this, the whole business just stops.
To protect those mission-critical assets, security experts rely on the CIA triad. You can think of this as the beating heart of pretty much all security models. First up is confidentiality. Think of this like a sealed envelope. We're preventing unauthorized people from reading sensitive data using tools like encryption or two-factor authentication. Second is integrity. This guarantees your data hasn't been tweaked, modified, or deleted by someone who shouldn't have access. It means you can actually trust that your data is accurate. And finally, availability. Look, your data does you zero good if you can't reach it. This means ensuring authorized folks have access exactly when they need it, using things like backup power supplies and redundant data drives.
That brings us to Section 3, 7 layers of cyber defense.
Okay, so cybersecurity is really a layered game. It's a comprehensive posture built in multiple layers, not just one giant wall. Right at the center, you've got your mission-critical assets. Wrapping around that, you have data security, which protects your storage and transfers. Then comes application security, endpoint security for all your devices, network security, and perimeter security. And encompassing that entire setup, the whole shebang, right at the top is the human layer. If an attacker wants your data, they literally have to peel back these layers one by one.
Let's actually contrast two absolute extremes of this fortress. On one end, we have the perimeter layer. This involves your digital borders, like enterprise firewalls, but also physical security, like a locked office door. On the other end is the human layer. And we've got to be honest here, humans are almost always considered the weakest link in any cybersecurity setup. A negligent user or a malicious insider can bypass all of your expensive digital perimeters with one single accidental click. That is exactly why staff training and strict access management are just as vital as any software you could ever buy.
Now let's talk about the bad guys in Section 4, navigating the threat landscape.
It is absolutely crucial to understand the difference between a vulnerability and a threat. A vulnerability is essentially a gap or a weakness in your system. We're talking about an unpatched server, a misconfigured database, or maybe an employee who just hasn't had their phishing training yet. A threat, on the other hand, is the actual security incident that exploits that specific weakness, like a hacker actively using that compromised database to steal your data, or even a tornado wiping out your physical server room. So the vulnerability is the unlocked window. The threat is the burglar actively climbing through it.
These threats generally fall into two main buckets. First, web-based attacks target websites and web applications.
This includes SQL injections, which literally trick your database into handing over sensitive info, phishing to steal user credentials, or DNS spoofing, which secretly diverts your web traffic straight to a hacker's computer. System-based attacks, however, are designed to compromise an entire computer or network. Think of viruses, self-replicating worms, and Trojan horses. A Trojan is particularly nasty because it actively misleads you. It looks like a completely normal application, but the second you open it, malicious code starts running silently in the background.
All right, shifting gears to Section 5, the NIST Cybersecurity Framework.
So the National Institute of Standards and Technology gave us this fantastic, actionable game plan called the NIST Cybersecurity Framework. It gives businesses an outline of best practices to manage risk, and it breaks down into 5 clear pillars. First, identify your equipment, software, and data. Second, protect them with strong access controls and encryption. Third, detect unauthorized activity on your network. Fourth, respond incredibly quickly with a concrete plan if an act actually happens. And fifth, recover and restore your affected systems. The big takeaway here? This is not just a one-and-done checklist. It's a continuous, ongoing life cycle of vigilance.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 6, Practical Defenses for Your Business.
Let's get real for a second. Phishing and ransomware are absolute nightmares for businesses today. Scammers use spoofed emails, infected websites, and malicious links to literally hold your systems hostage. They demand a payout, completely destroying the availability part of our CIA triad. So what's the defense? You have to back up your important files regularly, and crucially, keep those backups completely disconnected from your network. Keep your software updated so those known vulnerabilities get patched. And you've got to train your team to recognize the high-pressure, urgency tactics that scammers use in phishing emails. Now, the CEO absolutely does not need them to go buy gift cards right this second. Speaking of spoofed emails, business email imposters are a massive problem. To stop someone from sending emails pretending to be your company, you have to use email authentication protocols. Think of this like a nightclub bouncer. SPF is the bouncer checking the ID, just making sure the server sending the email is actually on the approved guest list. DCAM is like a secret digital signature proving the email hasn't been tampered with on the way over. And DMARC, well, that's the set of instructions you give the bouncer, telling the receiving server whether to outright reject, flag, or just ignore an email that fails those SPF and DCAM checks.
But hey, don't forget the physical world. Lapses in physical security can be just as devastating to your data's confidentiality. An employee accidentally leaving an unencrypted flash drive full of customer data at a local coffee shop? That is a massive breach. You must store paper files securely, encrypt all laptops, and mandate complex passwords. On top of that, implement multi-factor authentication, or MFA, so a stolen password simply isn't enough to breach your network. And if your team is working remotely, require them to use a virtual private network, a VPN, on public Wi-Fi to keep their traffic encrypted.
Finally, to keep this whole fortress standing, you've got to look both inward and outward. Inwardly, you create a culture of security by training your staff regularly. Outwardly, make sure your vendors are actually securing their own networks, because if they have access to your data and they get hacked, well, you get hacked. And lastly, strongly consider cyber insurance. Whether it's first-party coverage to help with your own data recovery and lost income, or third-party coverage for potential lawsuits, insurance ensures that if your fortress ever does get breached, your business still survives to see another day. We've covered a lot today, from the foundational theories and frameworks to the everyday practical defenses. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. If a ransomware attack strikes your network tomorrow, or an employee's laptop gets stolen tonight, are you actually ready? Cybersecurity is an active, ongoing commitment. I encourage you to take the frameworks and layers we explored in this explainer, honestly evaluate your own posture, and start building up your defenses today. Thanks for joining me on this one.